What you just saw is the aftermath at a Louisiana farm after just a few days of wild hog invasion. The feral hog problem here is getting worse and is nearly impossible to control. They've spread across all 64 parishes of the state, disrupting the ecological balance and causing alarming environmental damage. Wildlife conservation agencies confirm that the destruction of coastal wetlands caused by feral hogs is far more severe than the damage in inland areas. Their numbers are truly staggering, and if not managed promptly, the consequences will only get worse. For Danielle and Bradley, life here was once peaceful and quiet, a dream many Americans aspire to. Their beautiful home sits in the heart of nature, and their livelihood depends largely on farming. However, that tranquility is constantly shattered by invasive wild hogs. In just a few short days, a hungry herd can destroy an entire cornfield, leaving them with nothing.
Watch out!
Every harvest season could turn into a disaster if the hogs aren't controlled in time. After years of struggle, they invested in advanced trapping systems. These systems are so effective they're downright astonishing. According to the LSU Agricultural Center, invasive feral hogs cause hundreds of millions of dollars in agricultural losses each year. Large farm owners take a heavy hit, and Danielle and Bradley are among the most affected. Mobile cell-triggered gate traps combined with advanced mesh enclosures can capture an entire herd of dozens of hogs in a single baiting. When operated correctly, the scene is truly impressive. A massive group of hogs contained safely with not a single escape. Setting up a successful baiting location is no simple task and often takes several days, sometimes even a week. Trappers must patiently endure heavy rain, rising tides, and occasionally completely flooded terrain. Fortunately, the traps usually trigger just in time, right before the tide comes in. When harvest time arrives, the sight leaves anyone watching in awe. Huge hogs trapped in a flooded area, unable to escape. However, things don't always go smoothly. Sudden heavy rain or flooding can damage electronics, cameras, or remote controllers. A neighboring farmer once had water breach their solar system, completely disabling all trap cameras. Still, the work never stops. They know that if they let up, wild hogs can quickly spread everywhere, destroying everything in sight. Giving up means throwing away all the effort and progress they've made. Even with high-tech tools, sometimes a simple manual drop gate trap can't be replaced. This low-cost, straightforward setup relies on classic triggering, usually just a heavy rope. When a large herd enters the feeding area, they hit the mechanism, and the metal gate slams shut instantly. This method may seem old-fashioned, but it's extremely effective at capturing large numbers at once. It's a simple yet reliable solution that many experienced trappers still prefer. The best part is that nothing goes to waste. Once captured, invasive hogs are processed into high-quality frozen meat, from flavorful smoked sausages to nutritious food for the whole family. It's a way to turn a dangerous pest into a practical, abundant, and completely natural resource. Every meal becomes proof of effectively managing an invasive species without waste. Now, we want to hear from you. The feral hog crisis is a major challenge across many states, and there's always more to learn. Have you ever dealt with wild hogs on your land? Which trap designs or management strategies work best in your area? Leave a comment below to share and discuss your experiences. Previous operations had delivered significant results, but they were unable to completely eliminate feral hogs from the area. Across the fields surrounding the Texas ranch, fresh tracks continued to appear night after night. Forest trails were torn apart, and patches of ground had been dug up as if a small storm had swept through. It was clear evidence of one reality. Groups of feral hogs were still active out there. And this time, our mission was not only to reduce their numbers, but also to deal with animals that had become increasingly wary after repeated encounters with traps. The first trap was placed at the edge of the woods, where dense vegetation provided natural cover before the hogs moved into open areas. This was one of the travel routes that our cameras had recorded multiple times before. We completed the setup early in the morning and left quickly, trying to leave as little trace as possible. That night, the trap signal was triggered. As soon as the sun rose the following morning, we returned and could already hear noises echoing from the distance. Inside the steel trap, feral hogs were packed tightly together in a confined space. They moved constantly, crashing into the fencing and creating a chaotic racket. After days of monitoring, seeing the first trap produce results gave the entire team a boost of motivation. We quickly processed the site, removed the captured animals, and prepared for the next deployment location. The second location was completely different. It was an open clearing in the middle of the ranch, with almost no cover or hiding places. To be honest, I did not expect much from this spot. But sometimes simplicity creates the biggest surprises. Perhaps because they did not feel threatened, the hogs entered the area with little hesitation. When we returned the next morning, the sight before us genuinely caught me off guard. The trap contained far more feral hogs than expected, and most of them were large, fully grown adults. The individuals responsible for some of the most severe damage to farmland. After completing the work, we added fresh bait and reactivated the entire system. Tracks around the area indicated that many more hogs were still moving nearby. However, the next target would prove even more remarkable. The third trap was placed along a forest trail where the ground had been worn into a clearly defined path by constant hog activity. Everything was carefully prepared early that morning. No one expected that by the end of the day, the trap would already be completely full. When we returned, a chaotic scene awaited us. The trapped hogs continuously pushed against the fencing, circled around, and crowded into one another. Signs at the site suggested that nearly the entire group had traveled along this route and entered the trap area at the same time. The result proved that choosing the right travel corridor can sometimes be more important than any piece of equipment. As I moved to the final location, I found myself in a dense pine forest with secluded terrain and very little sign of human activity. The trap was left overnight. By the following morning, despite heavy rain that had been falling since before dawn, we decided to return and check it. Even from a distance, strong vibrations from the fencing could be seen to the curtain of wet grass. As we got closer, an entire group of feral hogs came into view inside the trap, clustered into smaller groups and constantly trying to escape after being confined for hours. The rain made the work more difficult, but it also marked the end of the entire operation. Every trap in every location had produced clear results, helping ease the pressure on the surrounding farms. Yet when I looked down at the damp ground still covered with fresh tracks, I understood that this was not the end. Out there, deep within the vast forest, other groups of feral hogs were still on the move. And before long, we would be back once again.
For an entire week, even though traps had been placed throughout the forest, wild boars continued to appear regularly on the cameras. They did not disappear. Every night they left fresh tracks and rooted up the ground. Yet whenever they approached a trap, the entire sounder would stop at a fixed distance, quietly change direction, and avoid locations where traps had previously been set. For the first time, I realized they were no longer acting purely on instinct. If we wanted to control the herd, our strategy had to change before they learned to avoid every trap we had prepared. As the situation became increasingly difficult to manage, I knew a different approach was needed. Instead of small traps that could only hold a few animals at a time, the goal was to capture the entire sounder at once. After hours of scouting, we selected a clearing deep within a pine forest. It was quiet, rarely disturbed by people, and located along a familiar travel route. Every detail was carefully planned to reduce the animal's suspicion as much as possible.
In a circle, corn on the outside, mouth.
When night fell, the surveillance cameras recorded dark shapes moving silently from the edge of the forest. They paused, sniffed the air, and continued forward. Eventually, the first boars entered the trap, followed by others. The entire sounder gathered around the bait, unaware of what was waiting ahead. Once enough animals had moved into the center, the gate suddenly dropped, completely blocking the exit. The following morning, we could hear sounds coming from inside long before we reached the trap. That alone confirmed the system had worked exactly as planned. However, this was only the beginning. 2 additional traps were deployed near the farm's crop fields. To be honest, I had low expectations for this location because it was wide open and lacked natural cover. The results were completely unexpected. After just one night, the number of boars captured far exceeded our predictions. When we arrived to inspect the traps, the scene left me stunned. Animals that were normally extremely cautious seemed to have let their guard down. Loud impacts echoed continuously as they slammed into the steel structure searching for an escape, causing the entire trap to shake under the pressure of dozens of frightened animals. After completing the setup, the team left the area to minimize human scent. As darkness covered the forest, the cameras recorded the first movements. Familiar black silhouettes emerged from between the pine trees and slowly approached the bait while carefully watching their surroundings. At first only a few animals investigated the area, but more gradually joined the group and entered the trap zone. Everything unfolded exactly as expected. When the moment arrived, the gates suddenly dropped and shattered the silence of the forest. The entire sounder immediately panicked. Squeals, collisions, and the sound of rattling metal echoed through the area. The boars repeatedly charged the steel frame in an attempt to escape, causing the trap to shake continuously. Even so, the structure remained secure until the handling team arrived. Once the inspection was complete, we processed each trap according to the prepared procedures. This stage required absolute precision because even a small mistake could be dangerous. Moving large, powerful boars was never simple, and every step required close coordination among team members. From aggressive adults to younger animals, each one had to be carefully controlled before being loaded onto transport vehicles. By the end of the day, as the truck left the area, the forest became quiet once again. But I knew this was not the end. The wild boar population was far larger than we had imagined, and the traps only reduced part of the pressure they placed on the environment. Even so, it was a necessary step to keep the situation under control before it grew beyond manageable limits. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and follow the channel to join us on future operations.
If every wild boar in the United States stood in a single line, their numbers would be enough to form an army stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Today, more than 9 million feral hogs live in the wild, causing billions of dollars in agricultural damage every year. But what worries experts most is not the current population. It is the speed at which it continues to grow. the war against wild boars is no longer just a problem for Texas farmers. Few people realize that this crisis began hundreds of years ago. Pigs were originally brought to North America by Europeans as a food source for explorers. Over time, some escaped into the wild and successfully adapted to their new environment. By the 19th century, Eurasian wild boars were also imported for sport hunting. When the two populations interbred, a new generation emerged. They were stronger, smarter, and far more capable of surviving than anyone had ever expected. When night falls, the real destruction begins. Herds of wild boars leave the forest and move into farmland. They root through the soil in search of food, destroy irrigation systems, and trample crops within just a few hours. Many farmers have gone to bed looking at healthy fields, only to wake up and find them completely devastated. The losses extend far beyond damaged crops, including the time, labor, and money required to restore the land afterward. At first, firearms seem like the simplest solution, but when the population reaches millions, hunting individual animals is no longer enough to make a meaningful impact.
Oh, yeah, look at the cutters on them.
Even with night vision equipment, thermal cameras, and drones, keeping track of constantly moving groups remains extremely difficult. In many cases, the survivors quickly learn to avoid areas where humans are present. What makes the situation even more challenging is how quickly wild boars learn. They remember safe travel routes, identify reliable food sources, and rapidly change their behavior when they detect danger. A herd that escapes a trap can remain cautious for months afterward. This remarkable ability to adapt has gradually made many traditional control methods less effective over time. After repeated failures, experts began changing their approach. Instead of focusing on individual animals, they shifted their attention toward controlling entire groups at once. That was when large-scale corral trapping systems began to appear. Massive steel structures were built along routes frequently used by wild boars. However, the trap itself was only one part of the strategy. The real key to success was understanding herd behavior and convincing the animals to enter willingly. Bait is placed continuously for several days, sometimes even weeks. At first, food is left outside the trap, then gradually moved deeper inside. Throughout this process, the gate remains open to create a sense of safety. Surveillance cameras monitor every movement, and only when most of the herd is inside is the system activated. Within seconds, a quiet area turns into complete chaos. But unlike previous methods, this approach can capture dozens of animals at the same time. Once removed from the site, the wild boars enter a strictly controlled management process. For many communities, this is not only a way to protect crops, but also a method of reducing pressure on ecosystems that have been severely impacted by this invasive species. The battle against wild boars may continue for many years, but it also highlights an important reality. When an animal adapts too successfully to a new environment, controlling becomes far more difficult than people ever imagined. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more stories about survival and the ongoing struggles between humans and wildlife around the world.
Previous operations had delivered significant results, but they were unable to completely eliminate feral hogs from the area. Across the fields surrounding the Texas ranch, fresh tracks continued to appear night after night. Forest trails were torn apart, and patches of ground had been dug up as if a small storm had swept through. It was clear evidence of one reality. Groups of feral hogs were still active out there. And this time, our mission was not only to reduce their numbers, but also to deal with animals that had become increasingly wary after repeated encounters with traps. The first trap was placed at the edge of the woods, where dense vegetation provided natural cover before the hogs moved into open areas. This was one of the travel routes that our cameras had recorded multiple times before. We completed the setup early in the morning and left quickly, trying to leave as little trace as possible. That night, the trap signal was triggered. As soon as the sun rose the following morning, we returned and could already hear noises echoing from the distance. Inside the steel trap, feral hogs were packed tightly together in the confined space. They moved constantly, crashing into the fencing and creating a chaotic racket. After days of monitoring, seeing the first trap produce results gave the entire team a boost of motivation. We quickly processed the site, removed the captured animals, and prepared for the next deployment location. The second location was completely different. It was an open clearing in the middle of the ranch, with almost no cover or hiding places. To be honest, I did not expect much from this spot, but sometimes simplicity creates the biggest surprises. Perhaps because they did not feel threatened, the hogs entered the area with little hesitation. When we returned the next morning, the sight before us genuinely caught me off guard. The trap contained far more feral hogs than expected, and most of them were large, fully grown adults. The individuals responsible for some of the most severe damage to farmland. After completing the work, we added fresh bait and reactivated the entire system. Tracks around the area indicated that many more hogs were still moving nearby. However, the next target would prove even more remarkable. The third trap was placed along a forest trail where the ground had been worn into a clearly defined path by constant hog activity. Everything was carefully prepared early that morning. No one expected that by the end of the day, the trap would already be completely full. When we returned, a chaotic scene awaited us. The trapped hogs continuously pushed against the fencing, circled around, and crowded into one another. Signs at the site suggested that nearly the entire group had traveled along this route and entered the trap area at the same time. The result proved that choosing the right travel corridor can sometimes be more important than any piece of equipment. As I moved to the final location, I found myself in a dense pine forest with secluded terrain and very little sign of human activity. The trap was left overnight. By the following morning, despite heavy rain that had been falling since before dawn, we decided to return and check it. Even from a distance, strong vibrations from the fencing could be seen through the curtain of wet grass. As we got closer, an entire group of feral hogs came into view inside the trap, clustered into smaller groups and constantly trying to escape after being confined for hours. The rain made the work more difficult, but it also marked the end of the entire operation. Every trap and every location had produced clear results, helping ease the pressure on the surrounding farms. Yet when I looked down at the damp ground still covered with fresh tracks, I understood that this was not the end. Out there, Deep within the vast forests, other groups of feral hogs were still on the move. And before long, we would be back once again. This time, we returned to Texas for a large-scale feral hog control operation on Ethan's ranch. Over the past few weeks, fresh signs have been appearing more frequently than ever before. Trails have been torn up, patches of soft ground were covered with overlapping tracks, and surveillance cameras continuously captured images of feral hogs showing up at all hours of the day. Most concerning of all, these were no longer solitary animals wandering in search of food. Large groups were moving together, more organized, more alert, and seemingly far more experienced from their previous encounters with humans. Ethan called us when the damage began escalating beyond control. With each passing day, more ground was being rooted up, more fences were being destroyed, and more cultivated areas were being devastated. Faced with the situation, the team quickly developed a plan to deploy an extensive trap network across the ranch. This time, the goal was not simply to catch a few animals, but to maximize every opportunity to control entire groups of hogs operating in the area before they could change their patterns. Early the next morning, the trap locations were finalized. Every site had been selected based on camera footage, tracks, and the hogs' established travel routes. After hours of continuous work under the Texas sun, the entire system was finally ready. We did not have to wait long before the first signal appeared later that afternoon. One of the traps had been triggered. When the team arrived at the site, a group of feral hogs was already trapped inside after entering in search of food. It was the first clear sign that the plan was beginning to pay off. The excitement barely had time to settle before another alert appeared on the monitoring screens just a few hours later. The second trap had also been successfully triggered. This time, even more hogs were inside. It was clear evidence that activity levels in the area were extremely high. 2 successful activations in a single afternoon were an encouraging start, but what happened next truly surprised the entire team. As darkness spread across the fields, the camera system began sending back even more activity. On the screens, groups of feral hogs emerged from the dark woods, followed familiar trails, and moved steadily toward the trap sites. The third trap was triggered first that night. A large sounder had ventured deep inside before the gate suddenly slammed shut behind them. The entire sequence lasted only seconds, yet the results exceeded all expectations. As the first rays of sunlight appeared on the horizon, we began our rounds to inspect the sights.
Good view.
Even from a distance, the first trap showed promising results, with constant movement still visible inside.
Easy now.
The hogs that had been confined throughout the night were extremely active. The team quickly carried out the control procedures exactly as planned. Once the first location was completed, everyone immediately moved on to the next site without wasting a single minute.
Yeah, well, since it's, maybe he's, yeah. Come on now. Yep. Let's go, Are you want me there?
The second trap delivered similar results. Under the morning light, the size of the group inside became even more apparent. Despite having been held for many hours, the animals remained remarkably alert. However, the team's experience and seamless coordination ensured that everything was handled quickly, safely, and efficiently. The final location proved even more impressive, becoming one of the most successful captures of the entire operation.
We about got it though. Let's go. I'm getting close on my battery. Yep. Come on. And we're gonna go to the sail.
Looking back on the operation as a whole, we truly began to appreciate the scale.
Yes, sir, Bobcat.
A trap system operating around the clock, a series of activations occurring one after another, and a busy morning spent completing the mission. It was more than just a successful operation. It demonstrated that when the right strategy is combined with thorough preparation, even the largest and most cautious groups of feral hogs can be controlled effectively.
Coming to this trapping site throughout the whole process by dogs quite a bit, or been shot at quite a bit. That one of the boars inside the trap actually had its ears. Boar's been pretty consistent with coming to the trap. Something may have happened to them, but they've also brought in 2 bigger boars in first. And as you can see in the back, and pigs come back. Now we were lucky enough to get 3. What we're left with the one of them, and trying to manage the 100% control of the population.
Arizona was completely different from any place where we had set traps before. Gone were the wide-open fields and familiar sparse woodlands of Texas. In front of us stretched a harsh, arid landscape filled with dense low brush, rugged rocky slopes, and countless fissures running between the hillsides. Even moving through the terrain became a challenge. Yet on that hard-packed ground, which seemed incapable of holding any trace, fresh wild hog tracks still stood out clearly. They appeared along trails, around low shrubs, and near the few scarce water sources. It was clear evidence that the wild hogs had adapted remarkably well to this unforgiving environment. But a major question quickly emerged. Would the tactics that had proven effective in Texas still work in Arizona? Or would we have to completely change our approach to keep up with these increasingly unpredictable adversaries? To find the answer, the first trap was deployed just as the sun rose above the horizon. The chosen location sat directly on a travel corridor marked by numerous fresh tracks and soil recently torn up by foraging activity.
Put more molasses.
Given Arizona's unpredictable weather conditions, I expected it would take quite some time before the hogs returned. Prolonged heat often causes them to alter their movement patterns and become more cautious. This time, however, things unfolded very differently. Not long after we left the area, an alert from the monitoring system suddenly appeared on the screen. The trap had been triggered. Without hesitation, we immediately turned around and headed back to the site. Even from several dozen meters away, the intense movement inside made it obvious that the result was significant. And just as expected, the entire herd of wild hogs had been contained within the steel enclosure. The sound of repeated impacts echoed through the quiet desert air. We quickly secured the situation and completed the operation before any risks could arise. After the first success, we pushed deeper into the sparse woodland that lay between the rocky slopes. The second trap was placed along a natural corridor where cameras had repeatedly recorded wild hog activity. Everything was completed quickly, and we left before the afternoon temperatures climbed too high. Unlike the previous attempt, hours passed without a single signal. It was not until very late at night that an activation alert finally arrived. When the sun came up, the team returned to the trap site. The marks on the ground showed that there had been plenty of activity throughout the night. And as we moved closer, the result became immediately apparent. Several wild hogs had been trapped inside after spending hours trying to find a way out. Once again, the trap proved its effectiveness in one of the harshest environments we had ever worked in. The final trap site was located deep within a remote area covered with thorny brush and natural rock outcrops. Just minutes after deployment, the system was triggered. Early the next morning, we set out immediately. The dry, scorching air had already begun to settle over the landscape. When we arrived, there was little doubt about the outcome. The herd of wild hogs was still confined inside after hours of being trapped. The final task was completed quickly, marking the end of the Arizona operation. As the last trap was packed away, I reflected on the journey we had just completed. Arizona was harsher, more difficult to access, and far less predictable than anywhere we had worked before. Wild hogs can adapt to their surroundings, change their activity patterns, and become increasingly wary after every encounter with humans. Yet they still move according to their own routines. And as long as we find the right location at the right time, they can still make mistakes. Even so, this battle has never truly ended. Somewhere among Arizona's dry and unforgiving landscapes, fresh tracks continue to appear every day. And sooner or later, we will undoubtedly return.
What would you do if wild hogs showed up every night and tore your farm apart? It always starts with the same sounds in the darkness. The sharp crack of dry branches snapping. The sound of roots being ripped from the ground. The screech of barbed wire fences giving way under the weight of powerful, muscular bodies. Meanwhile, farmers can do little but watch thousands of dollars in damage pile up. As soon as reports come in, the Texas Wildlife Department's rapid response team heads out immediately. The management team quickly puts an action plan into motion. Loaded behind the trucks are advanced trapping systems prepared specifically for the operation. Without wasting a single minute, the team begins examining tracks, rooting damage and disturbed soil to determine the herd's travel routes. First trap site is located in a narrow, dry creek bed. The rugged terrain makes a small modular trap the only practical option. Through infrared cameras, we watch the entire sounder gradually move inside and focus completely on the bait. After taking a deep breath and waiting for the perfect moment, I decisively trigger the gate. The heavy steel door slammed shut, instantly shattering the morning silence. Not stopping after the first success, the team quickly moves to the next trap location. Most of the hogs are already inside, but several large boars remain outside, constantly sniffing the air and acting suspicious of anything unusual. Waiting longer could mean the hogs inside finish feeding and leave. Acting too early, however, could allow the rest of the group to escape. After a few tense seconds of consideration, I make the call. The steel gate crashes down. The hogs left outside immediately turn and disappear into the brush, while chaos erupts inside the trap. Massive bodies slam repeatedly into the steel panels, creating harsh metallic crashes that echo across the area. The third trap site, deep in the woods, movement finally appears. Any fatigue we felt disappears instantly. This location is very different from the others because the hogs here are known for becoming extremely aggressive when cornered. For that reason, we use a specialized circular corral trap. Its design helps reduce stress and minimizes the risk of injury when the animal panics. When the moment is right, both trap mechanisms are triggered simultaneously. For a brief instant, the entire group freezes before survival instincts take over. They race around the enclosure, colliding violently with one another and the trap walls. Metal rattles non-stop as deep grunts and squeals echo through the forest. Near the livestock area, we face a completely different challenge. The hogs here have already learned to avoid traditional traps and are especially wary of narrow entrances. That's why we use a top-drop trapping system. No gate, no funnel, no obvious structure that might make them suspicious. One by one, the hogs cautiously enter the baited area, sniff around, and continue moving as if nothing is wrong. The moment the last sow steps into position, the signal is given. The massive steel frame drops instantly from the ground. The hogs explode into panic, but the heavy-duty structure keeps the entire group contained. At that point, the outcome is almost certain. Only when standing next to these traps do we truly realize the size and power of the animals we're dealing with. Their massive bodies and armor-like hides are capable of destroying crops, damaging irrigation systems, and spreading diseases that threaten livestock and native wildlife alike. Once everything is confirmed safe, the control team carries out the final stage of the operation right there on site. Every wild hog removed represents far more than a number in a report. It means protected farmland, reduced future damage, and a healthier balance within the ecosystem. If you'd like to follow more large-scale wildlife control operations like this one, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes.
Rubbed into the entire muscle.